Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Tata Steel Masters in 2023. So we're still in the round 4 of this beautiful chess event and we have covered already a beautiful and spectacular gameplay by Anish Giri versus Magnus Carlsen. Here's the link of the video, you can also check it out. I will not reveal you the result of the game between Anish and Magnus Carlsen. I'll reveal it at the end because I think we have to watch this game that I wanted to cover now, the game between Ding Liren and Praggnanandhaa from the perspective also how Magnus and Anish Giri performed, because both of these duels were I think very important in the round 4. So who wins now this game in the round 4 of course has great chances then in the later stage of the tournament, because we have to say it, Ding Liren, Praggnanandhaa, also Anish Giri and Magnus Carlsen played so far a great tournament. Praggnanandhaa played 3 draws, which is a great result. Of course, you didn't lose any games, and Ding won already 1 game. So after 3 rounds, I think Ding Liren was also one of the favorites to win the event, because he played also a very important game. He played the draw with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen. So basically, Ding had everything in his hands, and he faced now Praggnanandhaa in the round 4. But never underestimate Prago, because what I've noticed recently about Prago's games, they are so solid. He gets out of the opening in such an easy and beautiful way. His opening theory is brilliant. His tactics are always good. So maybe in the middle game stage he can miss something, but of course he's still young. He has room for improvement. He's only 17 years old, for God's sake. So it's really hard to beat him, because his openings are so great. In my opinion, Prago is getting stronger and stronger. We can expect him now really to beat many times Magnus, to beat many times Ding, to beat many times this top grandmaster. So Prague is really now the rising star. So let's see now the game. It was a tough battle. Don't expect really such a brutal tactical game here. It was really struggle, but sometimes struggle game are also cool here to watch. So be prepared. This is again really beautiful chess here by Ding Liren and Praggnanandhaa. So Ding opened with the move e4. We have e5 by Prague. We have knight to f3, knight to c6, and after bishop to c4 we have the Italian game. And here Prague goes into the symmetrical variation, into the gioco piano. We have both players have this active bishop on c4 and c5, hitting of course the pawn on f7, and from White's perspective hitting of course the f2 pawn. Many times in these types of positions, these are weaknesses, these are clear targets. Of course you cannot make immediately something happen, but many times the games in the Italian game are won because of spectacular tactics around the square. So in the continuation, kingside castling, knight to f6 by Prago. We have d3 fixing the structure, d6, and now c3. Of course it's a preparation to break an answer with the move d4 or with the move b4. That's why Prague creates breathing spaces for the bishop, and he's saying you can hit the bishop once, but I'll escape to a7, and I'll stay on this diagonal where I still have my activity against the weak f2 pawn. So rook to e1, we have bishop to a7, a4 preventing b5 of course, and now kingside castling by Prague, and now h3 preventing also bishop to g4. And I think in the beginning of the Italian game, you cannot make really so many huge mistakes. Basically, there are many sidelines that are good, and many times you reach still a similar position, not the same. And here after move h3, many times I see this line, so that's why I really tried many times to avoid from black's or from white's perspective the Italian game, because okay, it's a solid line. If you put now this position into an engine, it will say to you that you have equal chances here. But I really never liked this kind of Italian lines with bishop to e6, f takes e6, now bishop to e3, bishop takes e3, f takes e3, where we have this structure. The bishops are off the board. So it's, as I said, really now tough battle. We have many pawns now in the center of the board. Now you can break maybe with the move d4, knight to d2, d4, and similar stuff. Black will break with d5. So the game is becoming more and more drawish. We have to agree, because as I said, the bishops are off the board, and this is not such a complicated game anymore. There's simply no room. There are simply no great attacking chances now for both sides. So here Prago fixes even further the structure, and he's saying, okay, if I maybe get a draw against Ding with the black pieces, they should be solid. I'll probably make something in my games with the white pieces. Now with the move a5, the game is becoming more and more blocked out without further progress. So here in the continuation, knight to d2, we have now queen to d7, and now queen to b3. Okay, Ding is hitting now both of these pawns, but this is very easy to defend, of course, with the move b6. So now rook to d1, Ding is placing the rook where already the queen is. So now He's trying, of course, some d4 ideas, and if the d file clears somehow, then the queen could be endangered by the beautiful rook activity. So Pragg goes with king to h8. He wants to play freely here in the center, because many times there are several tactical threats. Also with ideas of knight to g5, knight to e6, knight to g5, knight to f7 could be also a problem. So that's why he gets out of the range. So far, also a good move here by Pragg. Queen to b5, knight to d8. Here Pragg is trying to simplify the game by trading off the queens. Ding accepts the challenge, and now after move the queen to d7, knight to d7, and it seems so this game is going into a draw for sure. But after move d4, which is of course a solid way to proceed here, knight to f6 by Pragg, also good choice. We have now the move king to f2, and here Ding makes a huge decision. In the beginning, it seems that it's a great idea, and in my opinion, when I saw this move for the first time, I really thought this was brilliant. Because why should this be a good idea? Because this game could reach really in a couple of moves really fast an endgame stage. So this game could reach the endgame stage in a couple of moves. It's really close to the endgame stage. So that's why in these types of positions you want to have your king closer. So when the king is playing the endgame, it could be used really as an active piece. In the endgame stage, you don't have to protect your king. You can really use your king as an attacking piece. So I think Ding's choice to play king to f2 in the beginning seemed like a good idea, because you're trying to reach the endgame stage. But Pragg is saying, dude, this is far away from the endgame. We have still our knights, we still have our rooks, we still have our pawns in the center of the board. Will not go into the endgame stage. I will try to attack you. So far with the move knight to g5, Pragg is attacking now basically the king. Of course, not directly, but indirectly. And if, for instance, this knight moves, then after knight to f3, g takes f3, you could be left with an isolated pawn. Also, pardon me, with the backboard pawn on f3, you could be left with an isolated pawn on h3. So I liked really Pragg's choice now. He realized the idea of Ding's, that he's trying to reach the endgame stage and have his king much closer than Black's king, because Black's king is too far away from the action. So it's a great plan, but Pragg is not allowing that. I really loved the fact how he realized the strategic goal of Ding. So after move knight to g5, king to e2. Again, you see, the king is getting closer and closer to the center. So Ding is hoping to reach the endgame stage, but now Pragg is saying knight to f3, and now knight to f6. I am not allowing you here to breathe, because first of all, here the knight is attacking the pawn after knight to d2. Already it's a passive square for the knight. The knight is only protecting now the pawn on e4, and now after king to g8, here Pragg is realizing, okay, this could really go into an endgame stage. I have to have my king closer, but now after move rook to f1, here Pragg goes with the beautiful move rook to e8, and you see now, he's saying, okay, maybe I don't have huge tactical possibilities, but at least I have some kind of a possibility, because as I said, again, if the e file opens, then the king could be in danger. So here in the continuation, rook to f3, we have rook from a to d8, and slowly but surely Pragg builds a beautiful formation where basically his pieces are on the optimal squares. I'm not sure about this move rook to f3, what was really the idea of Ding's here, because even if you manage to play some kind of a battery, you probably will not sacrifice your rook for the knight and maybe for a pawn. So the creating a battery was actually nothing spectacular here. Ding played g4, and it seems again like a logical idea. You want to play rook to f1, okay, maybe g5, but always, I think always black can really always compete on the f file. So there's nothing going on, I think, even in this position. So Pragg goes now aggressively. He's saying, no, man, we're not reaching the position that you want. Now I'm opening the center and your king is in danger. d5 is really a brilliant move. This was really the way to go. And here in the continuation, Ding realized his mistake and he retreated with the rook. So you see, he played once, twice, three times with the same piece without doing anything, and Pragg activated his pieces, and basically here black is taking over. Really wild stuff, because this is really far away from the endgame stage. It's sort of a area between the middle game stage and between the end game stage, but it's not a fully end game stage with a clear clarification what's actually going on in the potential end game. So that's really a tough battle, but I really love the fact that Praggnanandhaa realized every aspect of this position, every idea of this position. Even it's of course not a complicated game, but he realized his possibilities, because now after rook to f1, he's saying now, I'll open the center, because after e takes d4, the center gets open. Instead of this move rook to f1 that Ding played, he should have played actually here g5. G5 was the better way to go, because here after knight to e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4, and now rook to f1. After a couple of trades of pawns, we would reach probably this position. This was the way to go for Ding, trading off more pieces. And okay, probably black should be maybe slightly better because of the extra pawn, but it's a double pawn, it doesn't matter so much. Maybe with rook to d5, black can double up, but this was actually the way to go. But actually after rook to f1, this is not working, because as we said, e takes d4 here by Pragg, and he is now opening the center. We have a c takes d4, we have now d takes e4, and I again really love the fact that Pragg didn't take the pawn with the knight, because if he would have taken with the knight, then he would reach a simplified game. That's what I loved about this continuation, because now after d takes e4, we have now the move g5. Okay, he's saying you can attack my knight, but the pawn is now really close to my king. Now the king will come to this pawn and will attack it. So the idea that Ding created in the beginning, that he wanted to have his king closer to the action, actually turned around. Now basically black has a closer king to the action, because the king could come here, as I said, to g6, and then the g5 is weak, the a3 pawn is weak. Okay, here Ding takes out now the pawn, but now after move e5 again, Pragg is opening the position. Look at this, rook to f5, knight to b4, and here after move d takes e5, rook to d1, king to d1. Now Pragg is going beautifully into the game. Look how he activated his pieces, and after a couple more moves, we reach this position where basically black doesn't have structural weaknesses, where white has every pawn weak here in the position. A really great positional play here by Praggnanandhaa. Look at this. This pawn is weak, this pawn is weak, this pawn is weak, this pawn is weak, this pawn is weak. So in order to create a healthy structure, you have to play like 5-6 moves in order to improve your pawns all over the board. The rook is a little bit misplaced too. It doesn't create anything. And in the next couple of moves, we can expect really the king to come closer, and suddenly here black is taking over. I think from this point on, the game is becoming simply a one-way ticket here. So really wild stuff how Pragg played the game. I really loved that he created something basically out of nothing. I think many of us would, I don't know, maybe even offer a draw, settle for a draw and say okay, but he played this drawish game into a beautiful game here. After knight to e5, we have now knight to d2, and now the rook is coming into the game also in a beautiful way. Now the rook will be included through the square c6. Really wild stuff. And now we have rook to f4, and from this point on, black is really taking over, because now I think Ding made his first big mistake. Every other move was maybe a tiny little inaccuracy, but now this was a mistake, because he should have stuck to this plan. He should have probably played king to c3, including now the king into the game, because the king has to go towards the center. That was his plan in the beginning, and he didn't apply his plan further. He stopped to do his plan. After move knight to d7, he could have played here king to d4. Probably, again I'm saying probably, again black is better because of the opportunity. You will fix somehow the structure, but as I said, your king is at least there. It can play, it can maybe come closer to the c7 pawn. Maybe you have at least some kind of an opportunity. But after move rook to f4 that Ding played, now Pragg is saying no, you're not going now with your king into the game, because now the king has to step back. Here Pragg attacks the rook has to step back. Here after a couple of checks, now Pragg uses this moment and fixes the knight on a beautiful square. The king is out of the game, and now the rook is playing actively. The king is playing now actively, and suddenly the game really changed. Black is much better here. Really wild stuff how the game turned around in a couple of moves. Basically, as I said, out of nothing, Pragg created everything. Really spectacular play. Although maybe you think at home, okay dude, this is nothing spectacular what they're talking about, but I really love the fact that he created really something out of this really struggle position sort of. So it's really brilliant play. Knight to b4, king to b3, and now the king is closer. Now a new mistake here by Ding, pardon me. After knight to c4, he really lost the battle now on the king side. A better way to go was here the move knight to f3. You have to create now defensive structures here on the king side. You have to play knight to f3 because the king is coming closer to g6, h5, and at least you want to have the opportunity to fix the pawn structure with the move h4, and the knight on f3 would be connected to the pawn on the g5. This was the only way to somehow battle for the draw. But after move knight to c4, it's really hard even to realize this as an inaccuracy or mistake. Now Pragg is going with the king, now h4, but look at this, the king is coming in h5, and you have to protect now the pawn with the rook. And in such positions, you don't want to have such a rook that's only the passive, that's only defending one pawn. The rook is stuck to the defense of the pawn now on h4, and Pragg is using now this moment immediately after knight to e5, rook to e1. He is attacking first of all this pawn, rook to e4. Look at this, how bad it is when you have the structural weaknesses, when you have many of these pawns exposed really by black. After move rook to e4, Pragg goes for this one. Here we have knight to d7 by Ding, and now Pragg simply takes out the pawn. Ding goes for this one, but after a couple more moves, the game went to this, in which Pragg has an extra pawn, and this should be much better. This should be a winning continuation, because here after move h5, Pragg simply pushes the pawn further, and we have to realize the problems of this position. Let's just imagine one position that could have happened maybe in the next couple of moves. Maybe black loses even this pawn on c7 that black had previously. So let's see, maybe Ding manages somehow to grab this pawn, but again you have to lose another tempo in order to make that happen. So let's imagine maybe this position. The material is equal, but this is a completely winning endgame here for black, because the knight has really a tough time to battle against the outside pass pawn, against the distant pass pawn. So black just pushes the pawn further, and even if white pushes this pawn further, the knight can always catch it somewhere there. So black doesn't have to be worried so much about the potential progress of the e-pawn, where white has always worries what's going to happen on the h file. So even if you reach this position, the material is equal, but actually it's a winning game here for black for sure. So in my opinion, this is already almost game over. You have, okay, still you have to battle, but from this point on, I think it's obviously a tough game here for Ding. Pragg goes for this pawn. Here you can take out this one, but here we have reached, as I said, a similar position. Now it's even better because here we don't have even this pawn. So it's again a position where black is up a whole pawn. Here the continuation, knight to g6, rook to d4 by Pragg, although maybe rook to g4 slightly more accurate because you're creating against again a tempo against the knight. But this is just a stupid computer move. Pragg made everything correct here in the game. He played really brilliant chess. After rook to d4, rook to h7. Now after a couple of checks, here Pragg manages again to fix the pawn with the rook. Here in the continuation, now rook to b7, and now rook to d6, knight to f4. Here again Ding gets challenged with move h4, rook to g7, king to f3, knight to h3, and now knight to c6. Okay, many things you can do, but I liked again Pragg's choice because he realized, okay, so far white can never attack this pawn, so far white will probably not take out the pawn on h4. So he's not worried about that. So what he's worried about is, of course, that his knight is not playing, so he has to include somehow the knight into the attack in order to make further progress with the pawn. So that's why knight to c6 makes sense. We have here knight to g5, king to f4, knight to h3, king to f3 after a couple of perpetuals, king to e3, and here after knight to h3, now finally the knight is coming into the game. So this was the way to go here. Good move again by Pragg. So rook to g4, it seems aggressive because it seems also that you lose here a pawn, but actually this is not working because again Pragg calculated this mini tactics, rook to c5, and now we have this square, knight to f5, and look at this, everything is glued together, compact. That's how you play an endgame. The rook is connected to the knight is connected to the pawn is connected to the rook, and again the king is out of game. The king is far away from the action, this king is closer, so it's game over here for sure. So king to d7, king to f3, rook to g6, rook to d5, king to e6. Okay, nothing spectacular. Again, this idea, everything keeping compact here. Knight to g1 here by Ding, king to e4, knight to h3, rook to d4, and here after b3, rook to b4, of course, connecting now also the rook to the pawn again, but also attacking this weakness. In the continuation, rook to f6, king to d3, and here after king to e5, actually Ding Liren resigned because he made now a huge blunder, because now, of course, knight to g4, the fork loses on spot. So after king to e5, he resigned. He saw that immediately. But even if you don't play that, let's see even a better move. King to d7, still king to c2 will go for this pawn, still this pawn. So everything is too stretched. The knight is too far away from the action. So it's simply a completely winning endgame here for Anish Giri Praggnanandhaa. So brilliant game. What to say? Out of this, creating such madness, really wild stuff by Praggnanandhaa. Congratulations for winning sort of a Magnus. I would like to call it a Magnus Carlsen chess game, because Magnus usually wins this kind of end games where you struggle, where you battle, where you just try to find one inaccuracy, one tiny little path for your king, or maybe tiny little weakness in your opponent's position. So Pragg played really perfect Magnus Carlsen endgame and deserved the win here, I think, for sure. He didn't play any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. Completely outplayed in the middle game stage and also in the end game stage Ding Liren. Ding Liren made, of course, these mistakes, but I think these are not obvious tactical mistakes that we see maybe when you have maybe this fourth checkmate sequences. No, these were tiny little inaccuracies, and Pragg used the moment to find some paths with his pieces. Really brilliant play. I have to watch this game again, maybe analyze it even deeper, because that was quite interesting to see how we can win this kind of an endgame. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. It wasn't maybe the most spectacular game, but you see, chess is won also sometimes in these particular games. Again, congratulations for Pragg, who really outplayed maybe even the future world champion, because Ding is playing, of course, his game against Nepo. So outstanding performance by the 17-year-old Indian top grandmaster. So okay, if you want to see, as I said, the game between Anish Giri and Magnus Carlsen, here's also the link. So watch these two videos combined, because it's very dramatic what's going on now in the Tata Steel chess tournament. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.